Hey guys, hope you are well. Just thought I'd let you know before I start the video that I've decided to restart the Patreon account. So if you would like to support the channel for just £5 a month, you can click the link in the description down below. So it's just £5 a month. It'd mean a great deal if you guys could help support. But the two main things I'll be doing on the Patreon, number one, there'll be like audio podcasts. So rather than creating multiple videos for YouTube, say there's a signing, for example, there's either be an article that I'll do write-ups for, or I'll just do a quick 5-10 minute podcast, or some 30 to hour long podcast that I'll just throw up on there, listen to it on the, in the car to work, coming back from work. You just want to chill and listen to something in the background, that's available for you. And yeah, so the latest write-up, the first one on there, are my chosen squads for England and Samoa for the upcoming series in October. So if you sign up to the Patreon, link in the description, you can check that out and help me out for just £5 a month. That'd be greatly appreciated. But let's crack on with the video. Kicking things off, we have the Dolphins taking on the Storm, starting with the team list of the Dolphins. In the backs, they have Trey Fuller, Jermaine Osako, Jake Averillo, Herbie Farnworth, Jack Bostock, Cody Nikorima, and Isaiah Katoa. In the forwards is Jesse Bromwich, Jeremy Marshall-King, Kenneth Bromwich, Connolly Lemuelu, Ewan Aitken, and Max Plath. And on the bench is Josh Kerr, Mark Nichols, Ray Stone, and Tavita Pangai Jr. On the side of Melbourne Storm, they have Ryan Pappenhausen, Will Warbrick, Grant Anderson, Nick Meaney, Suafar Logo, Tyron Wishart, and Jerome Hughes. In the forwards is Tui Kamikamica, Bronson Garlick, Josh King, Sean Bloor, Elias Katoa, and Trent Liero. On the bench is Jack Howarth, Christian Welch, Nelson Asfa-Solomona, and Joe Chan. So, for me, there are plenty of games where I've backed the Dolphins, because I do think they are an exciting team. They can put up great numbers of points. They can come out with some surprise wins here and there. But typically against the strongest teams in the league, I haven't backed them. But they've still performed to an extremely high standard. Am I going to make the same mistake again? We'll see. So starting with the positives of the Dolphins, or the positive and negative. So the initial negative is that there's no hammer. Which initially, if you look at, the fact that they're playing against Melbourne Storm, you would say it's an issue. Except for the fact that we saw Trey Fuller play earlier in the season. Did he disappoint? Absolutely not. He was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And the rest of this Dolphins team at the minute is playing fantastic, especially with the starts that they get. They're playing extremely well. And against the Melbourne Storm team that can start slow as well. They show good intent, but they lose control after about 10 minutes. So this could be a good early matchup, especially for the Dolphins. Second, going on to the side of Melbourne Storm, Ryan Pappenhausen is back in, which is great. And that moves Suafar Logo over onto the wing with Xavier Coates picked for Origin. The concern there is that Farlogo is not used to the wing, being an inexperienced player in general. And against, I believe it would be Jermaine Osako, that's the side he'd be on. You don't want to be taking on Osako in an aerial battle, and having to defend against somebody like him with his skill and his experience is going to be difficult. And having to adjust to decisions that Nick Meaney makes on the edges, when to jam, could be difficult. So Farlogo is definitely going to be a target. And with Cody Nikorima and Isaiah Katoa having such great short-range kicking games, and Isaiah Katoa's general kicking game being much more improved, I think Farlogo is a real target there. I think Wishart and Hughes doing a great job anyway in the halves. Bronson Garlick's going to be starting at 9 with no Harry Grant there due to Origin selection. So I'm sure he's going to be fine, but he's not Harry Grant. Simple as that. He's not Harry Grant. A few players in there, like Liero's been really solid through the middle, and Eliasa Katoa on that right edge has actually been really, really good this season. King and Kamikamica, I think, will be fine through the middle, but I actually really like the matchup here. And with Tavita Pangai Jr. coming back in, he's going to want to set an immense tone when he's brought on. So I just think with the continuity in the Dolphins team, with Trey Fuller also being showing that he's a fantastic player when he got the opportunities earlier on in the season, and the Dolphins actually being able to compete with some of the best in the league, Storm getting a slow start, Dolphins having fast starts, I think this matchup really works out well for the Dolphins. So I'm going to go with the Dolphins to win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Titans taking on the Warriors, starting with the team list of the Titans. In the backs, they have Keanu Kinney, Alafiana Khan-Pereira, Brian Kelly, Philip Sammy, Jojo Fafita, Jaden Campbell, and Kieran Foran. In the forwards is Keenan Palacia, Chris Randall, Josiah Pahulu, David Fafita, Bo Fermor, and Erin Clark. On the bench is Sam Verrills, Isaac Liu, Isaac Farsu Malawi, and Joe Stimson. On the side of the Warriors, they have Chance Nickel-Klokstad, Edward Cossey, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Adam Pompey, Marcelo Montoya, Tamane Martin, Sean Johnson. In the forwards is Adam Fanua-Blake, Wade Egan, Jackson Ford, Marata Niokore, Dylan Walker, and Toy Harris. On the bench is Chanel Harris-DeVita, Jacob Laban, Jan Stavanger, and Tom Arley. First of all, Titans, how did they not win against the Tigers? 9 line breaks to 2, I think it was something like that from what I heard. And the overall performance from the Titans was immense. The carries through the middle were so strong. The play the ball speed was immense. The way that they spread the ball was really effective. Their issue was dropping the ball. Too many mistakes. It wasn't too much of an issue with discipline. Sometimes it was bad, but the main issue was just errors. Dropping the ball way too much. You had good field position. They could have done something with it, and they should have really won that game against the Tigers, and just mistakes cost them. The Warriors, they had their dip a couple of weeks ago, but they are starting to really find form. Tamani Martin is now settled in that number 6 role. And there's maybe less concerns over whether Tuivasa-Sheck should be taken on the fullback position. You move out Nickel-Klokstad. They seem to be comfortable now, because we know from last season the Warriors at their best can compete with anybody. And they're starting to find that. I still don't fully trust them yet that they're back at their best, but I do trust them. They are still just the stronger team compared to the Titans at the moment. But yeah, I think Tamani Martin, Sean Johnson together, more weeks, building together, building that rapport, getting that back to normal is only going to help them in the future. David Fafita is back in for the Titans, but there's no Moeki Fotueka because of origin selection. So that kind of balances out a little bit there in the forwards. But I think Fanua-Blake should do just fine dominating through the middle, as he typically does anyway. So I do think the Warriors will be fine. I wouldn't be surprised, just to put it out there, wouldn't be surprised if the Titans made this interesting and somehow came up with a win. I do think there's the kind of squad that they've got, they could make it happen. And Keanu Kinney, oh my God, what an exciting young player he is. He's brilliant and absolutely love him. I think he's fantastic. There's an exciting team there for the Titans, but I think the Warriors are the better team right now. But as I said, wouldn't be surprised if the Titans made it very interesting. But I'm going to go with the Warriors to win 1-12 points. Next up, we have the Roosters taking on the Bulldogs. In the backs for the Roosters, they have James Tedesco, Daniel Tupou, Fetalega Palga, Joey Manu, Dominic Young, Luke Keary, and Sam Walker. In the forwards is Jared Warrior-Hargreaves, Brandon Smith, Terrell May, Nat Butcher, Victor Radley, and now Fahu White. On the bench is Sandon Smith, Blake Steep, Satili Tupanua, and Siwa Wong. On the side of the Bulldogs, in the backs, they have Connor Tracy, Gerald Skelton, Bronson Cherry, Jacob Kiraz, Blake Wilson, Matt Burton, and Toby Sexton. In the forwards is Max King, Reid Marnie, Samuel Hughes, Josh Curran, Jamin Salmon, and Bailey Hayward. On the bench is Jake Turpin, Pawasa Farmasuli, Curtis Morin, and I'm going to butcher this one here, Lipoi Hopoi. I'll just go with that, but you can educate me down below. So, the Roosters, they won't have to suffer without James Tedesco. Pretty much have their full team available there. The only key players missing, Angus Crichton, Connor Watson, and Lindsay Collins, Spencer Liniu. So a few key names missing, but I think the replacements there aren't an issue. The fact that you have to bring in Terrell May to start at prop is not an issue. He's already having a fantastic season anyway. Brandon Smith comes back in, so that's huge. I think he'll want to prove a point after the incidents of a couple of weeks ago. Nat Butcher has to come in for Angus Crichton. Not the end of the world, is it, to be honest? You've got Blake Steep who'll come on from the bench, so a young lad there or inexperienced that, will get some opportunities. A few key players missing on the side of the Bulldogs as well. Of course, there's no Jacob Preston, Kurt Mann, and Stephen Crichton from last week's squad. Stephen Crichton is a big miss, because there is a point in this game where shit is going to hit the fan for the Bulldogs, and it's how can they respond? How can they bounce back without that leadership of Stephen Crichton? And I think the way that Matt Burton and Toby Sexton have controlled that team since developing their partnership this season has been really, really good. So I do think there's a culture now in the Bulldogs team that they can deal with missing players and they'll still have that energy, they'll still have that speed. Their attacking speed looked really good against the Eels a couple of weeks ago. It looked really, really good. My biggest concern is that against a stronger defensive team like the Roosters and a much stronger attacking team like the Roosters, they will struggle to keep up. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that it's not going to be a complete blowout, but I do think the Roosters, given the personnel that they've got available and the way that they've been playing over the last couple of months, the Roosters should be fine. Of course, last time out, the Bulldogs got it done. It was against 12. They were already dominating. I think it was 18-0 until Dom Young got the red card. I don't think it'll go that way again. I'm expecting a much stronger start from the Roosters. Players like Manu can probably dominate against Kiraz, who's maybe not as used to the centre position, or it'd be Fetalega Pauga, I think, would match up with him, so it's not as bad for him. Luke Keary and Sam Walker have been playing really well in the halves at the moment. James Tedesco, having him there is huge for the support plays, and as I said, Brandon Smith will hopefully want to prove a point. But that Roosters team looks good to me on paper. They've been playing really well. I do think the Bulldogs can make it interesting, but I'm going to go with the Roosters to win 13+. Next up, we have the Rabbitohs taking on the Seagulls, starting with the team list of the Rabbitohs. In the backs, they have Jai Gray, Alex Johnston, Tane Milne, Richard Kenner, Jacob Gagai, Jack Whiten and Cody Walker. In the forwards is David Mwale, Damien Cook, Sean Kepi, Michael Cheekam, Jai Arrow and Kian Kalamatangi. On the bench is Peter Mamazalis, Talis Duncan, Tom Burgess and Liam LeBlanc. On the side of the Seagulls, in the backs they have Lehi Hopawate, Jason Saab, Tolu Kula, Aaron Shop and Tommy Talau, Luke Brooks and Carl Lawton. In the forwards is Ethan Bullymore, Jake Simpkin, Toa Sipley, Corey Waddell, Ben Trebojevic and Nathan Brown. On the bench is Gordon Chan-Kum-Tong, Ben Condon, Caleb Navali and Atarsi James. Atarsi? Doesn't matter, let me know. So, the clear point here for the Rabbitohs, no Latrell Mitchell. However, the same as what I said about Trey Fuller for the Dolphins, if I hadn't or have already seen Jai Gray earlier in the season, I would have been slightly worried. But given how the Rabbitohs have been playing, Jack White and Cody Walker, 6 and 7, is working perfectly in the minute. Damien Cook's much more improved from where he was earlier in the season. Kian Kalamatangi is settled in that 13 role now as well. That's good for them. The bench looks pretty much same as normal, but Liam LeBlanc will feature this week. So exciting for him. No Cameron Murray, but I think they'll actually be fine, to be honest. Because you look at the deficiencies for the Seagulls, there's no Daly Cherry Evans because of the Queensland call-up. Aaron Shop has to play instead of Ruben Garrick, who, Aaron Shop is a regular centre, but is still going to be new to the system, relatively speaking. And Lehi Hopawate is still a young player that the likes of Jack White and Cody Walker could look to exploit mistakes in him. I do think the Seagulls can still be tricky because you look at the performance they put in against the Dragons, the fact that they were down to 13 through the entire squad, and the resilience to just keep going, to keep fighting, was immense. And Daly Cherry Evans helped to really control that. So without him there, and with a few deficiencies in that squad, I think the Seagulls will struggle at times. They'll still be okay because I think Luke Brooks can attack the line. But going down that left-hand side against the Dragons, they were very, very poor. There wasn't really too much going on. They were shut down very, very easily. So they might try to go down to the left with Luke Brooks being the key man down the left-hand side. But the Rabbitohs can use the Dragons blueprint a bit as a reference point because they were solid over on that side. But the Rabbitohs, I think they'll be fine. I honestly do. I'm not feeling a 13+ because there are still some issues there. Without Latrell Mitchell, it will be a bit tricky, but Jai Gray, I think, will be an absolute handful, complete and utter nuisance for the Seagulls' defence. I think overall, the performances that the Rabbitohs have been putting in recently have been really, really solid. They went from just a bit of energy to energy and quality on top of it. So I'm going to go with the Rabbitohs to win 1 to 12 points. Finally, for this round, we have the Tigers taking on the Raiders, starting with the team list of the Tigers. In the backs, they have Jerian Bula, Solomona Fartape, Brent Naden, Justin Olam, Charlie Staines, Lachlan Galvin, and Aidan Caesar. In the forwards is Stefano Otokomanu, Api Coruscant, Fanua Pole, Ruben Porter, Samuel Afenu, Justin Matamua. On the bench is Talon De Silva, Sione Fainu, Alex Seyfarth, and Kit Laulili. On the side of the Raiders, in the backs they have Jordan Rapana, Nick Kotrick, Matthew Timoko, Sebastian Chris, Xavier Savage, Ethan Strange and KO Weeks. In the forwards is Josh Papali'i, Danny Levy, Joseph Tarpany, Hudson Young, Elliot Whitehead and Morgan Smithies. On the bench is Zach Wolford, Ata Moriata, Trey Mooney and Emre Gula. So, as I said in the Titans section, how on earth did the Tigers come up with a win there? How on earth did they do it? Well, as I mentioned, a lot of mistakes from the Titans, but there was at least a decent level of resilience from the Tigers. They were dealing with a lot of pressure through the middle of the park. They were losing the field position battle heavily, but yes, there were a lot of mistakes that they were helped out by, but at least they were very resilient. And with the changes that they had to make to the spine, they dealt with them very well. But when you have someone of Api Korosawa's quality and experience at number 7, it does help, even though he was in a position he's, typically speaking, unfamiliar with. On the side of the Raiders, I have backed them in some weeks, especially with KO Weeks in there, still replacing Fogarty. They're a little bit up and down for me. Now, the first thing is I still think that with Strange and Weeks in there together, it's still okay. Sometimes we don't know what we're going to get, but it's still, generally speaking, fine. Defensively, this Raiders team is pretty good. It was pretty poor last week, especially early on in the game. So can they shut down the progress from the Tigers? They'll probably have some intent, especially with Galvin back in there at number 6. I think Galvin and Caesar's the best partnership at 6 and 7, allowing Korosawa to just flourish with quick play the ball speed, quick ruck speed through the middle at number 9. And Dream Buller filling in those spaces where needed. I do think Justin Olam will be a problem down that left edge, but I think Strange and Weeks will be fine together. The Raiders' defensive performance should be strong enough this week against a pretty lackluster Tigers attack for the most part. Let's not forget the Tigers also lost, I think it was 9 on the bounce before the win last week. So they're not suddenly back now that they've won one. They're still a really poor team. The Raiders are inconsistent, but as I said, are just the better team overall. So I think they'll be fine. But I think with that team that the Tigers have, they can at least make it somewhat interesting. And especially if the Raiders aren't on it like they sometimes aren't. But I do think the Raiders are the stronger team here and should be fine. Also with, I believe it's Hudson Young. Hudson Young is available. They should be okay. They should be fine. But, it's the Tigers and the Raiders. Anything can happen. But I'm going to go with the Raiders to win 1 to 12 points. So to recap my predictions for this week, I'm going to take the Dolphins and Warriors to win by 1 to 12. Roosters 13 plus and the Rabbitohs and Raiders to win by 1 to 12. Winners' confidence is at 95%. I genuinely think that a 100% round is possible. Now, it does annoy me a little bit that even if I got 5, even if I did get 100%, it's only 5. Because I still want an 8 out of 8, which I've not had yet. I think I've had a 7, maybe 2 7s. But, yeah, I could get 100%, but it's still only 5. But I actually really think these matchups, due to either origin selection and or injuries, work really, really well here for the winners that I've picked. Margin confidence, 85%. Some of these can go the other way. Obviously, Storm could beat the Dolphins. That's obvious. I think the Warriors could maybe make it 13 plus. Bulldogs could make it closer against the Roosters. And the Raiders could run away with it against the Tigers if Tigers go back to being completely poor as they were. But yeah, pretty confident on both sides. But we'll see how it works out this round. So there you have my NRL Round 16 predictions. If you've got your own predictions, do let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you got on last week. But yeah, that is going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.